The air in Adams, Tennessee was thick with fear. It clung to the town like cobwebs, catching on every whispered word and shared glance. Something wicked had taken root in their midst, something that defied explanation and chilled them to the bone. The stories spread like wildfire, leaping from farmhouse to general store, each telling more terrifying than the last. It was the tale of Kate Batts, a woman scorned, and the vengeance she wrought upon the Bell family. The story of Kate Batts and John Bell began long before the whispers of hauntings plagued the town. It was a tale woven into the fabric of Adams, a small community where secrets festered like wounds. John Bell, a man of ambition and drive, had carved his own path to prosperity, acquiring land and wealth, becoming a pillar of the community. But his success, it seemed, was not without its shadows, its whispers of ruthlessness and questionable dealings. Kate Batts, a woman hardened by life's trials, lived a solitary existence on the outskirts of town. She owned a small parcel of land, a meager inheritance that represented her only security in a world that offered little comfort. She was known for her sharp tongue and her distrust of outsiders, particularly those like John Bell, who seemed to possess an almost insatiable hunger for more. Their paths, so different, collided over a land dispute, a disagreement over boundaries and ownership. John Bell, it was rumored, had set his sights on Kate's land, believing it held the key to expanding his already considerable estate. He approached her with offers, some said, that were less than generous, his ambition overriding any sense of fairness or compassion. Kate, fiercely independent and wary of Bell's intentions, refused his advances. She clung to her land with an almost desperate tenacity, seeing it as her only shield against the encroaching greed of men like John Bell. Her refusal, however, only fueled Bell's determination, driving a wedge between them that would have lasting consequences. The dispute between John Bell and Kate Batts escalated, becoming a bitter feud that divided the town. Whispers followed John Bell, accusing him of using his influence to pressure and manipulate the elderly woman. Kate, in turn, became increasingly isolated, her distrust of Bell hardening into an all-consuming resentment. As tensions mounted, a darkness seemed to settle over the Bell farm. Animals fell ill, crops withered, and a palpable sense of unease permeated the air. Some whispered that Kate, driven to desperation, had turned to dark forces, calling upon ancient curses to exact revenge on the man who had wronged her. John Bell, however, dismissed these rumors as superstitious nonsense. He refused to believe that an old woman's curses could hold any real power. He continued to pursue his claim on Kate's land, confident that his will, backed by his wealth and influence, would ultimately prevail. But there was a shift in the atmosphere, a palpable tension that seemed to emanate from Kate Batts herself. Her eyes, once filled with a weary sadness, now burned with a cold fire, a look that sent shivers down the spines of those who crossed her path. The townsfolk, sensing a malevolence they couldn't quite comprehend, began to avoid the Bell farm, fearing that something wicked this way was coming. John Bell, undeterred by the growing unease and the whispers that followed him like shadows, finally succeeded in acquiring Kate Batts' land. The details of the transaction remained shrouded in rumor and speculation, but one thing was clear. Kate Batts felt cheated, robbed of her birthright by a man she believed to be heartless and driven by greed. The loss of her land seemed to break something within Kate. Her spirit, once resilient and defiant, withered, leaving behind a husk of bitterness and despair. She became a recluse, withdrawing further into herself, her silence more menacing than her former outbursts of anger. John Bell, seemingly triumphant, returned to his life of prosperity, seemingly unburdened by the plight of the old woman he had dispossessed. He dismissed the whispers of curses and ill omens as the idle chatter of superstitious minds, confident that his fortune was secure. But a darkness had settled over the Bell farm, a palpable chill that permeated the very walls of their home. The animals grew restless, their once placid demeanor replaced by an unnerving agitation. Objects began to move inexplicably, doors creaked open and slammed shut, and strange, disembodied whispers seemed to emanate from the shadows. John Bell, however, remained oblivious, blinded by his own ambition and dismissive of the growing sense of dread that had enveloped his family. The news of Kate Batts' death spread through the town like wildfire, a morbid whisper carried on the wind. She was found in her dilapidated shack, her body frail and lifeless, her eyes fixed in a chilling stare. Some whispered that she died cursing John Bell's name, her final breath a venomous promise of retribution that would echo through the ages. The townsfolk, though relieved by the passing of the woman who had become a symbol of misfortune and unease, couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. There was an unsettling stillness to the air, a pregnant silence that seemed to hum with unspoken menace. It was as if the very fabric of reality had thinned, allowing something dark and vengeful to seep through. John Bell, however, remained unmoved by the news of Kate's demise. He dismissed the talk of curses and hauntings as superstitious nonsense, clinging to the belief that his wealth and standing insulated him from such irrational fears. He saw no connection between the old woman's death and the strange occurrences that continued to plague his family. But as the sun began its final descent, casting long, eerie shadows across the Bell farm, a palpable chill settled over the land. A chorus of whispers, barely audible at first, seemed to rise from the ground itself, growing in intensity until they formed a single, chilling word: revenge. The Bell family, oblivious to the darkness that had descended upon them, prepared for another night in their once peaceful home, unaware that they were about to become unwilling players in a terrifying and tragic tale of vengeance from beyond the grave. The silence of the night was shattered. A piercing scream ripped through the Bell house, echoing across the fields. It was Betsy, her young voice raw with terror. John Bell rushed to his daughter's room, his heart pounding in his chest. Her bedclothes were in disarray, her face pale and streaked with tears. "The witch!" she gasped, pointing a trembling finger at the corner of the room. "She was here!" John Bell scanned the room, his eyes searching the shadows, but found nothing. He tried to calm Betsy, assuring her it was just a nightmare, but even he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over the room. The air felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy. It was the beginning of the torment. The moment Kate Batts' promise of vengeance took a terrifyingly real form. The days that followed were filled with unsettling incidents. Objects moved inexplicably, crashing to the floor in the dead of night. Disembodied whispers seemed to taunt them from the shadows. The Bell family lived in a constant state of fear, never knowing when or where the witch would strike next. It was a slow, insidious torture, designed to break their spirits and claim their sanity. John Bell, once a man of unwavering resolve, found himself doubting his own senses. He tried to rationalize the events, to find logical explanations for the unexplainable, but deep down a seed of doubt had been planted. Could Kate Batts in death be exacting her revenge? The very thought sent shivers down his spine, a chilling premonition of the horrors to come. The haunting escalated with terrifying speed. What began as unsettling noises and misplaced objects transformed into something far more sinister. Physical assaults became commonplace. Invisible hands pinched and scratched, leaving behind welts and bruises. Hair was pulled, and whispers, cold and menacing, hissed in their ears, threatening and taunting. John Bell, his skepticism crumbling in the face of the relentless assaults, found himself a prisoner in his own home. The witch's presence was everywhere, a suffocating weight that pressed down on him, stealing his breath and his sanity. He aged rapidly, his once robust frame withered and stooped, his eyes haunted by the horrors he had witnessed. The servants, their nerves frayed by the constant barrage of supernatural activity, began to flee the Bell farm. Whispers of the haunted house spread like wildfire, and soon no one dared to venture near the property after sunset. The Bell family was isolated, trapped in a nightmare of their own making, with no escape from the wrath of the vengeful spirit that haunted them. Despite the escalating terror, there was a cruel intelligence behind the witch's actions. She seemed to delight in their fear, her attacks becoming more frequent, more personal, as if she were studying them, learning their weaknesses, savoring their despair. And at the heart of it all was Betsy, John Bell's beloved daughter, who had become the focal point of the witch's wrath. The Bell family lived in a perpetual state of terror. Sleep offered no respite, haunted by nightmares and the constant fear of waking to another terrifying encounter. Meals were taken in tense silence, the clatter of cutlery echoing in the otherwise silent house. The once warmth and laughter had been replaced by an oppressive silence, punctuated only by the sounds of their tormentor. The children, their innocence shattered by the horrors they had witnessed, clung to their mother, seeking solace in her embrace. But even her love and reassurance couldn't penetrate the darkness that had enveloped their lives. The witch's presence was a constant threat, a shadow that followed them everywhere, whispering their names, reminding them that they were not safe, not even within the supposed sanctuary of their own home. John Bell, his strength failing, desperately sought a way to break the curse. He consulted with ministers and spiritualists, hoping to find a way to appease the vengeful spirit. But their prayers and rituals seemed only to enrage the witch further, her attacks growing more violent, her laughter more menacing. The once proud patriarch had become a shell of his former self. His spirit, broken by the relentless torment, could find no solace in religion or reason. He was trapped in a waking nightmare, forced to watch helplessly as his family was systematically terrorized by a force he could neither understand nor control. And as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, a chilling realization dawned on John Bell Kate Batts was not merely content with tormenting them. She wanted something far more sinister. She wanted to destroy them utterly and completely. Betsy Bell, once a bright and cheerful girl, now bore the brunt of the witch's fury. The unseen entity seemed to delight in tormenting the young girl, her laughter echoing through the house as she inflicted her cruel punishments. Betsy's once lively eyes were now clouded with fear, her laughter silenced by the constant threat that lurked around every corner. Invisible hands yanked at her hair, leaving painful knots. Scratches appeared on her arms as if raked by unseen claws. Whispers filled with malice and hate taunted her, calling her name, threatening to drag her into the darkness. The witch seemed to reserve a special kind of hatred for Betsy, her torments becoming increasingly cruel, as if she were trying to break the young girl's spirit completely. John Bell watched in agony as his beloved daughter withered under the weight of the haunting. He would find her huddled in a corner, her body trembling, her eyes wide with terror, whispering pleas for the torment to end. The sight of his once vibrant daughter reduced to a shadow of her former self fueled his rage and despair, but there was nothing he could do to stop it. The witch's fixation on Betsy was unnerving. It was as if Kate Batts saw in Betsy a reflection of everything she had lost, a cruel reminder of the life that had been stolen from her. Betsy became a pawn in the witch's twisted game of revenge, a symbol of John Bell's vulnerability, a target for her unyielding rage. And as the haunting intensified, it became horrifyingly clear that Betsy was not merely being tormented. She was being groomed, prepared for something far more sinister, something that chilled John Bell to the very core of his being. The tale of the Bell Witch, once confined to the hushed whispers of the local townsfolk, began to spread beyond the borders of Adams, Tennessee. It traveled on the wind, carried by travelers and traders, reaching the ears of those eager for tales of the strange and macabre. The story, with each retelling, grew more elaborate, more terrifying, fueled by the imaginations of those who heard it. The news eventually reached the ears of General Andrew Jackson, a man of formidable reputation, known for his unwavering courage and steeled nerves. Intrigued and skeptical in equal measure, Jackson, accompanied by a group of trusted companions, set out for the Bell farm, determined to either debunk the rumors or confront the entity that had terrorized the family for so long. As Jackson and his men approached the Bell property, they felt a palpable shift in the atmosphere. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy. The laughter of children, usually a comforting sound, was noticeably absent, replaced by an unnerving silence that seemed to emanate from the house itself. John Bell, his face etched with years of fear and torment, greeted Jackson with a mixture of hope and resignation. He had heard tales of Jackson's bravery, his ability to command respect, even from the most formidable of foes. Perhaps this man, with his unwavering spirit, could succeed where others had failed. Perhaps he could rid the Bell family of the curse that had haunted them for so long. Jackson, though initially skeptical, listened intently as John Bell recounted the horrors that had plagued his family. He examined the scratches on Betsy's arms, the bruises on Lucy's neck, the fear that seemed to cling to them like a shroud. He heard the tales of objects moving on their own, of disembodied voices, of the relentless torment that had driven some to the brink of madness. Despite the chilling accounts, a part of Jackson remained unconvinced. He had faced down armies, stared death in the face, and emerged victorious. A ghost, he reasoned, was nothing more than a figment of an overactive imagination, a product of fear and superstition. He resolved to expose the witch for the charlatan he believed her to be. The witch, however, seemed to take offense to Jackson's disbelief. As Jackson and his men prepared to retire for the night, their wagons suddenly became hopelessly stuck in the mud. The wheels refused to budge, despite the best efforts of the men and the straining muscles of the horses. The air grew thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the sound of their frustrated grunts and the snorting of the horses. Then, from the depths of the woods surrounding the farm, a voice rang out, high-pitched and chillingly distinct. It addressed Jackson by name, mocking his skepticism, challenging his authority. The voice, filled with an unnerving mirth, promised a night of torment unlike any he had ever experienced. Jackson, his face pale in the moonlight, realized that he had stumbled into something far more sinister than he could have imagined. True to her word, the witch wasted no time in asserting her dominance over the unwelcome guests. Invisible hands tugged at their blankets, pulling them from their sleep. Objects flew across the room, smashing against the walls, the sound echoing through the house like gunshots. Whispers, cold and menacing, taunted them, their words laced with threats and promises of unimaginable suffering. Jackson, his initial skepticism replaced by a growing sense of dread, found himself battling an unseen force that defied logic and reason. Every attempt to rationalize the events was met with a terrifying display of the witch's power. He realized, with a chilling certainty, that he had underestimated his adversary. As dawn broke, casting a pale light on the chaos that had unfolded during the night, Jackson and his men emerged from the house, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. Gone was their earlier bravado, replaced by a newfound respect for the unseen entity that held them captive. With a mixture of fear and resignation, Jackson ordered his men to pack their belongings. As their wagons rolled away from the Bell farm, the witch's laughter echoed behind them, a chilling reminder of her power and their helplessness. Jackson, his head bowed in defeat, knew that he had witnessed something truly evil, something that would forever haunt his dreams. The Bell Witch had claimed another victory, her legend cemented in the annals of American folklore. Years went by, years etched with fear and punctuated by the witch's escalating torments. The Bell family, once vibrant and full of life, were but shadows of their former selves, their spirits ground down by the relentless haunting. John Bell, once a symbol of strength and prosperity, now bore the full weight of the curse upon his stooped shoulders. His hair, once thick and dark, had turned a ghostly white, his face a canvas of worry lines, his eyes reflecting the terror that had become his constant companion. The witch seemed to delight in his decline, her laughter echoing through the halls of the Bell House whenever John stumbled or showed signs of weakness. She no longer just tormented, she toyed with them, her presence a constant, menacing shadow that darkened their every thought and action. The townsfolk, though living in fear of the witch's reach extending beyond the Bell property, spoke of John Bell's impending doom in hushed whispers. They said the life was being drained from him, slowly and deliberately, by the malevolent entity that held him captive. And then, one crisp autumn morning, John Bell did not rise from his bed. His family found him still, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling, his face pale and lifeless. The doctor, summoned from town, could offer no explanation for the suddenness of his demise. He spoke of natural causes, of a heart simply giving out, but even he couldn't ignore the chill that settled over the room, the feeling that something wicked had played a part in John Bell's demise. The news of John Bell's death spread through the town like wildfire, a mixture of relief and apprehension rippling through the community. Relief that the man's suffering had finally ended, but apprehension about what would become of the witch now that her primary target had breathed his last. Would she finally be at peace, or would her wrath find a new outlet, a new victim to torment? While the townsfolk mourned John Bell's passing with a mixture of sorrow and fear, a dark truth unraveled within the walls of the Bell House. John Bell Jr., while tending to his father's belongings, discovered a small, unlabeled vial hidden beneath the old man's bed. It contained a strange, viscous liquid, its color shifting ominously in the dim light. Curiosity, mixed with a growing sense of dread, compelled John Jr. to take the vial to the town doctor. The doctor, a man of science and reason, initially dismissed the vial as nothing more than a home remedy, a concoction of herbs and tinctures common to the rural South. However, upon closer examination, his face paled. The liquid, far from being harmless, contained a potent and deadly poison, one capable of causing a slow and agonizing death. The realization sent a chill down his spine, confirming the whispers that had haunted the town for so long. John Bell had not died of natural causes. He had been murdered. As the doctor shared his findings with the Bell family, a wave of grief and horror washed over them. The realization that their father, their tormentor, had met his end at the hands of the witch, the very entity they had feared for so long, was almost too much to bear. It was a cruel and twisted irony, a final act of vengeance that left them both terrified and strangely vindicated. The witch, it seemed, had saved her most devastating blow for last. She had not been content with merely tormenting John Bell in life. She had orchestrated his demise, slowly poisoning him, savoring his decline, turning his own home into his tomb. It was a masterpiece of malice, a testament to her power and her unyielding thirst for revenge. The air hung heavy with dread, and the smell of damp earth as the Bell family gathered at the edge of the family cemetery. John Bell, his body ravaged by the unseen tormentor, was finally laid to rest. The townsfolk, their faces etched with a mixture of sorrow and apprehension, kept their distance, their eyes darting nervously towards the Bell House, as if expecting the witch to make a final, terrifying appearance. As the minister finished his somber eulogy, and the first clods of earth hit the wooden coffin, a strange sound cut through the silence. It started as a low hum, barely audible at first, then grew in intensity, morphing into a high-pitched wail that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was the witch, her voice filled with a mixture of triumph and mockery, as if celebrating her victory over the man who had wronged her in life. The townsfolk, their faces pale with terror, wasted no time in fleeing the cemetery, their fear overriding any sense of decorum or respect for the dead. They scrambled over headstones, their cries of terror mingling with the witches' chilling laughter. The Bell family, however, remained rooted to the spot, their grief and fear paralyzing them. As suddenly as it began, the laughter ceased. An eerie silence descended upon the cemetery, broken only by the sound of the wind whistling through the trees. The witch, her final act of defiance complete, had vanished. She left behind a legacy of fear and unanswered questions, a chilling reminder that some wounds, even in death, could never truly be healed. With John Bell laid to rest, a palpable sense of relief settled over the community of Adams. The haunting, however, did not cease entirely. The Bell house stood silent, a stark reminder of the horrors that had transpired within its walls. Whispers lingered, carried on the wind, of objects moving on their own, of disembodied laughter echoing through the empty rooms. Some spoke of seeing flickering lights in the windows at night, a sign that the witch, though subdued, was not yet finished with the Bell family. Betsy Bell, forever marked by the ordeal, eventually left the family home, seeking solace in a new life far from the town that held so many painful memories. But even distance could not erase the scars left by the witch's torment. The whispers, the laughter, the chilling touch of unseen hands, these were memories that haunted her dreams, a constant reminder of the darkness that had once consumed her life. The townsfolk, though eager to move on, remained forever changed by the haunting of the Bell family. The story of Kate Batts, the vengeful witch, became a cautionary tale whispered around campfires, a reminder that some transgressions could have consequences that echoed through generations. The Bell Witch, once a local legend, had secured her place in the annals of American folklore. And so, Adams, Tennessee, bore the weight of its haunted history, a town forever linked to the tale of the Bell Witch. The land, once a symbol of prosperity and promise, now held a chilling secret, a reminder that some wounds, even in death, could never truly be healed. And as the years turned into decades, the legend of the Bell Witch lived on, a chilling testament to the power of vengeance and the enduring darkness that can haunt a place and its people. The story of the Bell Witch, far from fading into obscurity, continued to captivate and terrify generations. What began as a local legend, passed down through whispered tales and campfire stories, grew into a cultural phenomenon. Books were written, documentaries filmed, and the Bell Farm, now a popular tourist destination, drew curious visitors eager to catch a glimpse of the supernatural. The legend even found its way into the realm of popular culture, inspiring countless books, movies, and television shows that explored the themes of revenge, hauntings, and the thin veil that separates the living from the dead. The Blair Witch Project, with its shaky camera work and found footage style, drew direct inspiration from the Bell Witch legend, tapping into the primal fear of the unknown and the unseen. The haunting of the Bell family served as a chilling reminder that some stories, no matter how fantastical or terrifying, refuse to be forgotten. They linger in our collective consciousness, fueled by our fascination with the unexplained and the human desire to make sense of the world around us. And so, the legend of the Bell Witch lives on, a testament to the power of storytelling and the enduring fascination with the unknown. It serves as a reminder that some secrets, buried deep within the earth or locked away in the darkest corners of our minds, have a way of resurfacing, their power undiminished by the passage of time. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment below. Those things really help our channel bring you more creepy content, and we appreciate everything you do to support us.